Have you ever felt trapped in a cycle that seems impossible to break? You're not alone. Many people experience the struggle of letting go, feeling powerless and stuck in their emotions. Imagine freeing yourself from the chains that bind you to past pain, releasing the burden of attachment and stepping into a life of inner peace. As the Buddha wisely said, "You only lose what you cling to." In our fast-paced world, emotional attachments can weigh us down, keeping us from experiencing true happiness and clarity. In this video, we'll dive into 10 profound Buddhist lessons that will guide you on a journey of emotional detachment, empowering you to let go with grace. What if the key to your freedom lies in understanding these ancient teachings? Holding on to toxic emotions and attachments can cloud your judgment, distort your peace, and rob you of your inner tranquility. But don't worry, these timeless Buddhist practices will provide you with the wisdom and strength to release what no longer serves you. First, you need to understand, what is emotional detachment? Emotional detachment is the practice of separating your emotions from your reactions, allowing you to maintain a clear perspective in any situation. It's not about shutting down your feelings, but rather mastering the art of letting go so that you're not consumed by emotional turmoil. Do you know how emotional attachments ruin our life and happiness? Emotional attachments often stem from a place of fear, insecurity, or desire. They can cloud our judgment, trap us in cycles of suffering, and prevent us from living fully in the present moment. When we cling to people, outcomes, or expectations, we become entangled in a web of disappointment and frustration. This attachment can drain our energy, stifle our growth, and ultimately steal our happiness. But don't worry, this video will guide you on how to detach from these emotional chains and reclaim your peace. 1. The power of detachment. Emotional attachment binds us in ways that are often unseen, creating dependencies that cloud our judgment and lead us into suffering. We become entangled in the lives of others, thinking that our happiness depends on them, that their presence, approval, or love is the key to our fulfillment. Yet this is a false narrative, a trap laid by the mind. In truth, detachment is not about becoming cold or indifferent. It is about reclaiming control over our emotions and anchoring happiness within ourselves. To detach is to find freedom, to no longer be swayed by the impermanent nature of life and relationships. As the Buddha wisely said, we suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them. Our suffering stems from the way we cling to those around us, how we allow our well-being to hinge on their actions, their words, their very presence. This attachment is the root cause of our distress, chaining us to the wheel of suffering. In the teachings of Buddhism, detachment is the path to liberation. It is the key to breaking free from the cycle of suffering that attachment creates. Prince Siddhartha, before he became the Buddha, was a man who lived amidst luxury and abundance. Yet he recognized that true happiness was not to be found in material wealth, nor in the relationships that bound him to the palace. His renunciation of his princely life was an act of profound detachment, a recognition that the sources of worldly joy are fleeting and ultimately unsatisfying. By stepping away from all that was familiar and comforting, he began his journey towards enlightenment, towards a happiness that was unshakable and eternal. In our own lives, we must learn to practice this kind of detachment. It requires us to shift our focus from seeking validation and joy outside ourselves to cultivating a deep sense of inner peace. This does not mean we withdraw from relationships or the world, but that we engage with them without losing our sense of self. We must reflect on what truly brings us joy and learn to experience it without clinging. The practice of detachment is about understanding the transient nature of all things and finding contentment within, so that we remain steadfast in the face of life's inevitable changes. 2. Understanding attachment. Attachments often arise from a deep-seated need for validation, a longing to be seen, heard, and understood. This need is rooted in our ego, which constantly seeks affirmation from the external world. But what happens when this validation is withheld or lost? Fear and insecurity creep in, binding us even tighter to those we seek approval from, creating an endless cycle of dependence and pain. To begin the journey of emotional detachment, we must first recognize that these attachments are driven by the ego's desires, not by our true nature. The Buddha taught us attachment is the root of suffering. This simple yet profound truth lies at the heart of Buddhist philosophy. From the moment we are born, we radiate pure joy, untouched by the complexities of the ego. A newborn child has no concept of possession or attachment. It is simply present, basking in the light of its existence. However, as we grow, the ego begins to take hold, and with it comes a growing attachment to people, objects, and ideals. These attachments, far from bringing us happiness, only serve to entangle us further in the web of suffering. The importance of understanding the roots of attachment cannot be overstated. It is only by recognizing that our attachments are ego-driven that we can begin to loosen their grip on our hearts. Consider the story of the monk who carried a woman across a river. Although monks were forbidden to touch women, he lifted her onto his shoulders without hesitation, set her down on the other side, and continued on his way. His companion, however, could not stop thinking about the incident, troubled by the breach of their vows. The first monk, having let go of the woman physically and mentally, remained at peace. His companion, however, was still carrying her in his mind, burdened by attachment to an event that had already passed. In our own lives, we often carry such burdens, clinging to past experiences, relationships, and expectations long after they have ceased to serve us. To practice detachment, we must engage in self-reflection, identifying areas where our attachments have taken root. This process is not about severing ties with those we care about, but about loosening the ego's grip on our relationships. By gradually releasing these attachments, we create space for true connection, free from the chains of fear and insecurity. In this way, we move closer to emotional liberation, cultivating a sense of inner peace that remains untouched by the ups and downs of life. 3. Detachment in practice. Holding on to past relationships and experiences often feels like clinging to a lifeline, yet this very act is what hinders our personal growth. We become trapped in the memories of what was, unable to see the potential of what could be. This attachment to the past acts as a weight, preventing us from moving forward and embracing the new possibilities that life has to offer. The key to breaking free lies in the understanding that true growth can only occur when we let go of what no longer serves us and focus instead on what we can control: our actions, our thoughts, our journey. The Buddha taught, letting go gives us freedom, and freedom is the only condition for happiness. This wisdom is rooted in the fundamental Buddhist belief in the impermanence of all things. Everything in life is transient, constantly changing and evolving. To hold on to something that is already past is to deny this truth, and in doing so, we invite suffering into our lives. By releasing our grip on the past, we open ourselves up to the freedom that comes with living in the present moment, unburdened by the chains of what once was. The importance of emotional detachment lies in its ability to free us from the shackles of the past, allowing us to move forward with a clear mind and an open heart. Consider the parable of the raft. A man uses a raft to cross a treacherous river. Once he reaches the other side, the raft has served its purpose. Yet if he were to continue carrying the raft on his back, it would become a burden, hindering his journey rather than helping it. The same principle applies to our attachments. Relationships and experiences from the past may have helped us at one time, but once their purpose is fulfilled, holding on to them only weighs us down. To practice detachment, we must actively engage in practices that help us release these attachments. Meditation and mindfulness are powerful tools in this process. Through meditation, we can observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment, allowing them to come and go like waves on the ocean. We learn to see the impermanence of our feelings and the futility of clinging to them. Mindfulness, on the other hand, grounds us in the present moment, helping us to focus on what is within our control rather than being consumed by the past. By cultivating these practices, we slowly begin to let go, not with bitterness or regret, but with a sense of peace and acceptance, knowing that true freedom lies in moving forward, unburdened by what has been left behind. 4. The illusion of control. The desire to control the actions of others or to dictate the outcomes of relationships is a common, yet dangerous illusion. We often convince ourselves that if we say the right words, make the right moves, or show enough care, we can steer the course of a relationship, ensuring that it will unfold exactly as we wish. But this belief is nothing more than a mirage, leading us into frustration and despair when reality does not conform to our desires. The truth is that control is an illusion, and the sooner we recognize this, the sooner we can find peace within ourselves. As the Buddha wisely said, "You cannot control what happens to you, but you can control your attitude toward what happens to you." This is the essence of detachment, understanding that while we may not have power over external events or the actions of others, we do have power over how we respond to them. The pursuit of control over others only binds us more tightly to the very things we wish to escape: disappointment, frustration, and suffering. In contrast, relinquishing the need for control opens the door to inner peace, allowing us to navigate the ups and downs of life with grace and resilience. Buddhism teaches that the relinquishing of control is essential for cultivating a deep sense of inner peace. When we stop trying to bend the world to our will and instead focus on controlling our own reactions, we free ourselves from the endless cycle of dependency and disappointment. We come to understand that our emotional well-being does not hinge on the actions or decisions of others, but on our own state of mind. Consider the story of the farmer and his horse. One day, the farmer's horse ran away, and his neighbors came to offer their condolences for his bad luck. The farmer simply replied, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returned, bringing with it several wild horses. The neighbors congratulated him on his good fortune, and again he replied, "Maybe." The following day, his son tried to ride one of the untamed horses and was thrown off, breaking his leg. The neighbors once more offered their sympathy for this misfortune, and once more the farmer replied, "Maybe." A few days later, the army came to the village to conscript young men for war, but they passed over the farmer's son due to his injury. The neighbors remarked on how fortunate he was, and the farmer again replied, "Maybe." This story illustrates the unpredictability of life and the futility of trying to control its outcomes. What seems like a disaster may turn out to be a blessing, and what seems like good fortune may bring unforeseen challenges. By letting go of the need to control, we allow life to unfold naturally, accepting each moment as it comes without judgment or resistance. To practice this detachment, we must embrace acceptance and mindfulness. Acceptance allows us to let go of the need for control, acknowledging that we cannot predict or dictate the course of events. Mindfulness keeps us anchored in the present moment, helping us to respond to life's changes with a calm and centered mind. In this way, we cultivate the freedom to live fully and peacefully, no longer bound by the illusion of control. 5. The path to happiness. The quest for happiness is often misdirected toward the external world, where we seek validation, approval, and love from others, believing that these will bring us the joy we crave. We chase after material wealth, status, and relationships, hoping that by acquiring these, we will finally feel fulfilled. Yet, this pursuit only deepens our suffering, for it places our happiness in the hands of circumstances and people beyond our control. True happiness, however, is not found in the fleeting nature of external achievements or the approval of others, but arises from a deeper, more enduring source within ourselves. The Buddha taught us that wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. This profound insight reveals that the key to happiness is not in accumulating more, but in desiring less. It is in the cultivation of inner peace, contentment, and self-sufficiency that we find true wealth, a wealth that is not dependent on the whims of the outside world. Buddhism teaches that happiness is a state of mind, one that can be nurtured and sustained regardless of external conditions. It is independent of others' opinions or presence, grounded instead in our own sense of self-worth and inner tranquility. Understanding this truth is crucial for emotional detachment. When we realize that our happiness does not depend on others, we free ourselves from the chains of dependency and the fear of loss. Emotional independence is not about isolating ourselves or becoming indifferent to the people around us. Rather, it is about building a strong foundation within, one that remains steady regardless of external fluctuations. This emotional resilience allows us to navigate relationships and life's challenges with grace, without losing our sense of self or our inner peace. The story of the Buddha under the Bodhi tree is a powerful illustration of this principle. After years of searching for enlightenment through various external means, asceticism, meditation, and teachings from others, Siddhartha Gautama realized that the answers he sought could only be found within. Sitting under the Bodhi tree, he vowed not to rise until he had attained enlightenment. It was there, in deep meditation and introspection, that he found the ultimate truth and the key to unshakable happiness. This enlightenment was not granted by any external force or person. It emerged from within him, from the profound realization of the nature of existence and the path to liberation from suffering. To practice this path to happiness in our own lives, we must turn our focus inward, committing ourselves to self-improvement and personal growth. This involves cultivating a deep sense of self-worth that is not reliant on external validation or the presence of others. We must learn to find joy in our own company, to nurture our talents, and to embrace our own journey of growth. By doing so, we create a reservoir of happiness that is untouched by the comings and goings of life, a wellspring of peace that we can draw upon in any circumstance. This path requires dedication and mindfulness. It calls for regular self-reflection and the practice of gratitude, recognizing the abundance we already possess within us. By focusing on what truly matters, our inner development and the cultivation of virtues such as compassion, wisdom, and patience, we align ourselves with the teachings of the Buddha and move closer to a state of lasting happiness. In this way, we become emotionally resilient, able to detach from the need for external approval and find contentment and peace in the richness of our own being. Number 6, reframe your thoughts. Our thoughts shape our reality, often holding immense power over our emotions and actions. When we cling to negative beliefs, such as the idea that we cannot live without someone, we allow these thoughts to dictate our emotional state, deepening our attachment and suffering. These thoughts become chains that bind us, reinforcing the false narrative that our happiness depends on others. But the truth is, the mind is a powerful tool that can either imprison us or set us free. depending on how we use it. The key to emotional detachment lies in reframing these thoughts, transforming the way we perceive our circumstances and relationships. As the Buddha wisely observed, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. This metaphor reminds us that our inner world is painted by the thoughts we entertain. If we allow negative, disempowering thoughts to dominate our minds, our spirit becomes tainted with their color, leading us into a cycle of despair and dependency. However, by consciously reframing our thoughts, we can change the lens through which we view the world, reducing the emotional hold that unhealthy dependencies have over us. Buddhism teaches the profound importance of this mental shift. Instead of dwelling on thoughts like, "I can't live without this person," Buddhism encourages us to adopt more empowering beliefs such as, "I am capable of finding happiness and fulfillment on my own." This shift in perspective weakens the emotional grip of attachment, allowing us to regain our strength and independence. It is through this reframing that we can begin to see our worth, not in relation to others, but as inherent within ourselves. Consider the story of the monk who saw beauty in everything by changing his perspective on life. This monk lived in a humble monastery, surrounded by what others might see as dull or ordinary. Yet he found joy and beauty in every aspect of his surroundings, from the simple leaves on the trees to the gentle sound of the wind. His contentment was not a result of his external circumstances, but of his inner outlook. By choosing to see the good in everything, he lived in a state of perpetual peace and happiness. His story illustrates the transformative power of reframing our thoughts, how we can find beauty and contentment in any situation by simply altering our perspective. To practice this in our own lives, we must engage in cognitive reframing. This involves actively challenging negative thoughts and replacing them with neutral or positive ones. When faced with a thought that causes pain or reinforces attachment, we should pause and question its validity. Is it truly accurate? Or is it a product of our fears and insecurities? By examining these thoughts and replacing them with more balanced perspectives, we can gradually loosen their hold over us. This practice is not about denying reality, but about choosing a more constructive and empowering way to perceive it. By reframing our thoughts, we cultivate a mindset that supports emotional independence and resilience, allowing us to detach from unhealthy dependencies and find peace within ourselves. 7. Set healthy boundaries. In the absence of healthy boundaries, we often find ourselves entangled in the emotions and expectations of others, losing sight of our own needs and autonomy. Without these boundaries, we become vulnerable to the demands and influences of those around us, compromising our emotional well-being in the process. The path to emotional detachment requires that we learn to set and maintain clear boundaries, boundaries that protect our inner peace and allow us to remain true to ourselves, even in the face of external pressures. The Buddha once said, "Your work is to discover your work, and then with all your heart to give yourself to it." This teaching underscores the importance of understanding our own path, our own purpose, and dedicating ourselves fully to it. To do this effectively, we must create space for our growth and self-discovery, which can only be achieved by setting boundaries that prevent others from encroaching on our personal journey. Boundaries are not about shutting others out, but about preserving the sanctity of our inner world, ensuring that we remain centered and focused on what truly matters to us. In Buddhism, the practice of setting boundaries is intertwined with the values of self-discipline and respect, both for ourselves and for others. When we establish boundaries, we honor our own needs and limits, recognizing that we are not responsible for fulfilling others' expectations at the expense of our well-being. At the same time, we respect the boundaries of others, understanding that true compassion lies in supporting each other's autonomy and growth, rather than imposing our desires or demands. Consider the story of the Buddha's refusal to abandon his quest for enlightenment, despite his father's pleas for him to return to the palace and assume his royal duties. Siddhartha Gautama understood that his journey toward enlightenment was his calling, one that required him to set firm boundaries, even with those he loved. By honoring his path and maintaining his boundaries, he ultimately achieved a higher purpose, one that benefited not just himself, but countless others. This story illustrates the power of boundaries in maintaining our focus and integrity, allowing us to pursue our true purpose without distraction or compromise. To practice setting healthy boundaries, we must first take the time to reflect on our own needs, values, and limits. What is it that we truly need to thrive, and where do we draw the line between supporting others and sacrificing our own well-being? Once these boundaries are clear in our minds, the next step is to communicate them effectively to those around us. This communication should be done with kindness and respect, ensuring that others understand our limits without feeling rejected or alienated. At the same time, it is crucial that we respect the boundaries of others. Just as we seek to protect our own emotional space, we must honor the space that others need to maintain their well-being. By doing so, we create relationships that are based on mutual respect and understanding, where each person is free to grow and flourish without undue pressure or dependency. In this way, setting healthy boundaries becomes a vital practice for emotional detachment. It allows us to maintain our autonomy, reduce dependency on others for validation or happiness, and remain committed to our own path, all while fostering relationships that are supportive and balanced. 8. Embrace the present moment. Our minds have a tendency to drift, clinging to memories of the past or anxiously anticipating the future. This constant oscillation between what was and what might be pulls us away from the present moment, creating a fertile ground for attachment and suffering. We become entangled in regrets over what we cannot change and fears about what we cannot control, losing sight of the only reality we truly possess, the here and now. This is where the practice of mindfulness becomes a crucial tool in our journey toward emotional detachment. The Buddha's words, "Confine yourself to the present," offer a timeless reminder of the importance of living fully in the moment. Buddhism teaches us that by anchoring our awareness in the present, we can break free from the mental chains that bind us to past sorrows and future worries. The present moment is where life unfolds. It is where peace resides and where true freedom from attachment can be found. By embracing mindfulness, we cultivate the ability to experience life as it is, not as we wish it were or fear it might become. Dwelling on the past or worrying about the future does nothing but create unnecessary stress and deepen our emotional attachments. These attachments often manifest as lingering regrets, unresolved pain, or a constant yearning for a different outcome, none of which serve our well-being. Similarly, anxiety about the future can trap us in a cycle of fear and anticipation, preventing us from finding peace in the present. The Buddhist approach encourages us to let go of these distractions and focus our energy on the now, where we can engage with life fully and authentically. The story of the Buddha's mindfulness under the Bodhi tree is a profound example of this principle. As he sat in meditation, Siddhartha Gautama faced numerous temptations and distractions, each trying to pull him away from his pursuit of enlightenment. But the Buddha remained steadfast, grounding his awareness in the present moment. By focusing solely on the here and now, he was able to see through the illusions of past and future, ultimately achieving enlightenment. This story illustrates the power of mindfulness in overcoming the distractions that lead to attachment and suffering. To practice embracing the present moment in our own lives, we can engage in mindfulness exercises such as meditation and mindful breathing. Meditation allows us to quiet the mind and return our focus to the present, helping us to release the grip of past regrets and future anxieties. Through mindful breathing, we can anchor ourselves in the current moment, using each breath as a reminder that we are alive, here and now. These practices are simple yet profound tools for cultivating presence and detachment, enabling us to navigate life with greater peace and clarity. By consistently practicing mindfulness, we can gradually train our minds to remain centered in the present, freeing ourselves from the attachments that are rooted in past and future concerns. This detachment is not about avoiding life's challenges, but about meeting them with a clear, calm mind, unburdened by the weight of what was or what might be. In this state of presence, we find the space to live more fully, to connect with ourselves and others more deeply, and to experience the true essence of peace and freedom. 9. Engage in self-care. In the pursuit of emotional detachment, one of the most overlooked yet essential practices is self-care. When we neglect to care for ourselves, we leave our bodies and minds vulnerable to exhaustion, burnout, and emotional dependency on others. This neglect can create a void that we unconsciously seek to fill through our relationships, leading to unhealthy attachments and a loss of our own autonomy. To truly detach from these dependencies, we must first build a strong foundation within ourselves, one that is rooted in self-care and self-compassion. The Buddha taught, "To keep the body in good health is a duty. Otherwise, we shall not be able to keep our minds strong and clear." This wisdom underscores the intrinsic connection between our physical well-being and our mental clarity. When we prioritize self-care, we nourish not only our bodies, but also our minds and spirits, creating the balance needed to navigate life's challenges with grace and resilience. In Buddhism, the practice of self-care is seen as an integral part of maintaining harmony within ourselves, allowing us to face the world with strength and inner peace. Self-care is not an act of selfishness, but a necessary step in cultivating emotional independence. When we take the time to nurture ourselves, we become less reliant on others for our happiness and validation. Instead of looking outward to fill our emotional needs, we turn inward, finding contentment and stability within. This shift in focus allows us to engage with others from a place of wholeness rather than neediness, fostering healthier, more balanced relationships. The story of the Buddha's life offers a profound lesson in the importance of self-care. After years of extreme asceticism, denying himself basic needs in the pursuit of enlightenment, Siddhartha Gautama realized that neither indulgence nor deprivation could lead to true understanding. It was only when he embraced the middle way, finding a balance between these extremes, that he was able to achieve enlightenment. This middle way emphasizes the importance of caring for oneself both physically and mentally as a foundation for spiritual growth and emotional resilience. To incorporate self-care into our daily lives, we must regularly engage in activities that nurture our body, mind, and spirit. This might include physical practices like exercise, yoga, or adequate rest, which strengthen the body and provide the energy needed to face life's demands. Equally important are mental and emotional practices such as meditation, journaling, or spending time in nature, which help clear the mind and soothe the soul. Additionally, nurturing our spirit through activities that bring us joy, such as creative pursuits, hobbies, or simply spending time with loved ones, is crucial for maintaining our overall well-being. By making self-care a priority, we equip ourselves with the tools to build emotional resilience and independence. This foundation allows us to detach from unhealthy dependencies, standing strong in our own identity and well-being. Through this practice, we learn that true strength comes not from clinging to others, but from nurturing and caring for ourselves, creating a life of balance, peace, and inner fulfillment. 10. Practice gratitude. We are often consumed by what we lack, this endless desire for more, this yearning for what's missing. It's a deep, gnawing void that pulls us into attachment, binding us to things, people, and outcomes that ultimately elude us. But there's a profound shift that we can make, one that can sever these chains of attachment and bring us closer to emotional freedom. That shift is gratitude. Gratitude is not merely about acknowledging what we have. It's about a deep appreciation that changes the lens through which we view our existence. When we focus on what we have, we diminish the power that our unmet desires hold over us. Buddha's wisdom guides us here. Do not spoil what you have by desiring what you have not. Remember that what you now have was once among the things you only hoped for. This simple, yet profound truth speaks to the heart of our struggle with attachment. We often fail to see the abundance already present in our lives, and instead fixate on what we do not possess, feeding the fire of desire and attachment. Buddhism teaches that gratitude is not just a practice, it's a pathway to contentment. It is the antidote to the craving that drives us into emotional bondage. When we cultivate gratitude, we are not merely being thankful, we are nurturing a state of being that is content and at peace. This state of peace is a fertile ground for emotional detachment because it weakens the grip of craving and desire that keeps us tethered to others in unhealthy ways. The story of the monk who found happiness in the simplicity of life by being grateful for every little thing is a powerful testament to this principle. This monk lived with little, but was rich in his gratitude. Every meal, every breath, every sunrise was a source of deep joy for him. His gratitude was not contingent on having more, but was rooted in a profound appreciation for what was. And in that gratitude, he found the strength to let go, to detach from the need for more, from the attachment to outcomes or possessions. Practicing gratitude in our own lives can be as simple as keeping a gratitude journal. Each day, take a moment to reflect on the positive aspects of your life. Write them down. These small acts of recognition shift our focus from what we lack to what we possess, from scarcity to abundance. Over time, this practice rewires our minds, making it easier to let go of the attachments that cause us suffering. The more we immerse ourselves in gratitude, the more we cultivate a mind that is serene, content, and free from the turmoil of endless desires. In practicing gratitude, we are not just letting go of someone, we are letting go of the very root of our attachment, our insatiable craving. We replace it with a deep sense of contentment and peace, creating a life that is not only detached, but also profoundly fulfilled. Emotional detachment isn't about shutting off your heart. It's about reclaiming your inner peace and living with greater intention. As we've explored the profound teachings of Buddhism, it becomes clear that letting go is not a loss, but a powerful gain, a gain of freedom, clarity, and a deeper connection with our true selves. By embracing these lessons, you are not turning away from life, but stepping into it with a fuller, more compassionate heart. If this message resonated with you, remember to like and share this video, and subscribe to Life Lessons for more Buddhist wisdom. Let us continue this journey together toward a life of peace, purpose, and profound inner strength.